Hello everyone, and welcome to the full moon partial lunar eclipse in Capricorn for July 26, 2018. The full moon is actually tomorrow, but we're doing our live broadcast just ahead of schedule for our friends in other places of the world. And I'm going to adjust this light because it seems kind of bright right in my face right now. There we go. Let's call that good. Hi, Jonah! It's good to have you on. So, we're doing the full moon partial lunar eclipse releasing practice tonight, even though the lunar eclipse isn't until tomorrow. We're just doing a little bit ahead of schedule, and so welcome to the broadcast. I'm 𝗙𝗽𝗏 for those of you who might be new to the group, because there's a lot of people who just joined recently. I'm the astrologer and artist of Mystick, Physick, Astrology. So I'm the admin of the group. I use Western Sidereal astrology in my practice. Specifically, I use the 𝗙𝗽𝗏𝗃 zodiac. And what I do with my practice is I like to help you reconnect with your purpose and remember why you came to begin with. And so my aim is always to provide how we can consciously use the energy of the transiting planets to affect our lives in a positive way. And so thank you for joining me. Hi, Danielle. If you need to look up your sidereal sign placements, because I know some of you might not be familiar with the sidereal zodiac, you can do that. Go to the website at mysticphysick.com/sidereal tools. There's a calculator. You can just pop in your birth information and it will cast your chart for you. And then what you can do is just take a quick screenshot if you like. What I'm going to do, let me see. I'm going to pull up the broadcast and I'll pop that link into the comments. And that way, if you do need your chart, you can go get it. How are you doing, Jonna? It's good to have you on. I'm excited for this one because Capricorn is my sun sign. So I'm ready to let go. I don't know about all y'all. All y'all. There's a lovely turn of American phrase, isn't there? So the late July full moon. It's in Capricorn. It marks our second eclipse of the month, the second in a series of 3 extending into August. This particular eclipse is likely to bring sudden structural change and a little bit of upheaval maybe. Could potentially alter some traditions, some traditional structures, could potentially force matters as they relate to unmet obligations. So if you have unmet obligations, just be aware of that. Reputation can be affected, especially when private behavior is made public, as we've been seeing lately in the news cycle. I don't know if y'all have been following the news here. Jonna says, I'm doing better. Please tell me things won't get worse. You know, I don't really believe that they will. This particular eclipse, the full moon in Capricorn, could still be a little challenging because of the potential for upheaval, for private behavior to be made public as a consequence of eclipses making things known. There's an aspect with Uranus at this eclipse, if I recall correctly. Don't quote me on that, ladies, and gentlemen. I have been all over the board in terms of where I have been writing and reading and looking ahead and prepping and writing content for broadcasts. So my brain is in about 12 different points in time at once, and none of them are the present moment. One of the hazards of being an astrologer. So there is an element of surprise associated with this particular eclipse. There's a likelihood of unexpected outcomes and sudden turns of events. And that's really, you know, that's okay in the sense that whatever happens, happens. We will figure out a way through it. We will figure out a way past it. We will figure out a way to deal with it, you know? So the week before and after July 27th are when we're going to feel this particular eclipse the strongest. Especially so if you happen to have a planet or personal point at 9 or 10 degrees of an earth or water sign. So Capricorn, Taurus, or Virgo, those are the earth signs. Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, those are the water signs. And so this is kind of an echo, a little bit of repeat if you were on my broadcast earlier today about eclipses. a little bit of a recap of some information there. So those are the 6 signs that you want to look at closely in your natal chart. 9 or 10 degrees of any of those signs, you're likely to feel this particular eclipse pretty personally. So what we normally do on the broadcast, I know most of you I think have been through this with me before, what we normally do is we go through what house this particular lunation is going to fall in for each of you by rising sign. I'll touch on what the themes of those houses are, so if you need to make a note of them, you can, especially if you're not super familiar with what the houses represent in a chart. And then once we're done with that, we'll dive into the Capricorn archetype. What is Capricorn? And then we'll explore some questions and some prompts to kind of spur our thinking around what it is we want to let go of tonight. And we have some good ones. I kind of beefed it up because we have an eclipse, and I wanted to be able to move solidly into that releasing energy with the eclipse being active. So grab your pen and paper. If you have Aries rising, 10th house, so career and achievement, awards, recognition, status, and reputation. Okay. If you have Taurus rising, it's going to be 9th house, so that's higher education, long distance travel, and long distance communications, like broadcasting. The 9th house also has to do with religion and philosophy and legal matters. So it's international affairs and legal matters, essentially, and then the expansion of your mind, higher education. So that's for Taurus rising. If you have Gemini rising, this will be an 8th house full moon for you. So other people's money, resources that other people have, which are at your disposal. It can include investment earnings, even if they're your own investments. It's just not going to include money that you earn from the work that you do, right? It can also include taxes and insurance, inheritance monies, bonus or commission income, or windfalls. So winnings, money that you just come into unexpectedly. And then the more kind of esoteric themes of the 8th house are the occult and death, rebirth, and transformation. And then for folks who have Cancer rising, this is going to be 7th house, marriage and partnership full moon. So like I said, marriage and partnership, it can also be business partnerships and your relationships with other people in general, how you interact with other. And then if you're looking at the descendant in your chart, that specifically points to what we reject about ourselves, which is kind of an interesting thing to explore in your chart. With Leo rising, this is 6th house full moon. So work, health, pets, daily routines, employees, if you have employees, those are going to fall into the 6th house. And habits, I want to call that one out specifically. As a matter of fact, I'm going to add it to my list so that it's there. Habits are daily habits and schedules, but habits is something that I want to kind of really drill into in terms of when there's an eclipse and it's a full moon, you have a heck of an opportunity to release a bad habit forever. And so if you have Leo rising, consider using this particular full moon for that. Or if you have Leo sun, because you of course can do these exercises for your sun sign as well. You're working with your solar houses in that case. And so if you have Leo sun, you can do the same thing. You could release a bad or negative habit that you have. Okay, something that you do every day. If you have Virgo rising, 5th house, so creativity, children, romance, and true love, pleasurable activities, sports, risk-taking and gambling, hobbies, things we do for fun. Those fall under the 5th house. If you have Libra rising, this is going to be 4th house, so home and property, family, your parents, can tend to mean the mother more so a bit than the father when it's a 4th house, but it can be either parent, and sometimes whether it's mother or father is specific to your own natal chart, but it can be both sometimes when it's a 4th house lunation. But home, family, real estate, and later life. Hi Emily, hi Laura, it's good to have you on. So Scorpio, that's a 3rd house full moon, travel and communication, but travel and communication happens local to you, okay? It all has to do with your mind and your mental acuity, your manner of thinking, and I want to say cognating, but I don't know if that's actually a word. It has to do also with siblings and neighbors in your immediate environment. So the space that is near to you. And if you're joining us late and I've already passed your sidereal rising sign, if you want to know what house this is falling in for you and what the themes of that house are, just note in the comments for me what your sidereal rising sign is. And I will, I'll recap once I get through to Pisces. So Sagittarius, second house. This is earned income and expenses. So money that you earn by the work that you do, or money that you earn from your business, if you're a business owner, has to do with wealth and possessions, but these are movable assets, so not real estate, okay? And then the second house also covers expenses. So this could have to do with expenses that you have to pay or are responsible for as well. For Capricorn, this is a first house full moon. So appearance and identity, your personality, your self-expression, your physical body, and the role that you have or that you play in the world is also something that falls under the first house. And then for Aquarius rising, it's 12th house. So privacy and seclusion, also spirituality, also your unconscious mind. So a full moon in the 12th house is great for releasing a limiting belief. So consider that if you have Aquarius rising. And then the 12th house also has to do with a couple other points that we don't touch on very much, and I went ahead and added them so that we can start talking about them in the future. The 12th house has to do with your escapist tendencies and addictions or addictive behaviors that you have. And so a full moon in the 12th house could be a wonderful opportunity, especially at an eclipse, to release an addiction. Okay, keep that in mind. And then for Pisces, this is an 11th house full moon for you. So friends, organizations, hopes, and dreams, your deepest wishes. One of my favorite things to play with when using the transits in a proactive way. Jonna says, oh boy, I have Libra rising and I'm moving across the country to live with my mother this month. That sounds about right, Jonna. So you can see how this particular eclipse, because that's coming to a culmination, you're moving this month, which, I mean, really, there's not that many days left in this month, right? That is, for you, actually the main way that this particular eclipse is unfolding. And so as we talked about in the previous video earlier today, I would have a look at how that eclipse interacts with your natal chart, and then note in your calendar whatever coming lunations in the next 12 months have similar aspects. Okay, so if it's square, conjunct, or opposition, you're going to be looking at the square, conjunct, and opposition lunations to Capricorn. Okay, and then if it happens to be a trine, then you're going to be looking at the lunations that are sextile or trine to Capricorn. And you'll just want to like go through your notebook or your planner, and especially if you have the Ultimate Astrological Planner, it should be easier, and just mark which ones are happening in signs that have that same nature of aspect as what you're experiencing at the eclipse, because they're going to trigger the same theme for you throughout the remainder of the 12 months from this point on, basically. If that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. Anyway, so what is Capricorn? That's an excellent question. Capricorn is cardinal Earth. It's symbolized by the constellation of the goatfish, and I love this because we really think of Capricorn, we think of as the goat. And the actual constellation is the top half of a goat and the bottom half of a fish. And so I think that kind of speaks a little bit more to Capricorn's nature, kind of informs it. So Capricorn is a very achievement-oriented sign, right? He can scale heights that no other animal is capable of reaching. I don't know if you've ever seen mountain goats and the kinds of stuff they climb. Holy crap, they will go places where no one can follow. Capricorn, as an energy, is kind of the same way. Other signs sometimes when it comes to like goal setting and accomplishing, especially if we're talking about someone with Capricorn energy that's like healthy, active energy, sometimes they have a hard time keeping up. And so that's often why folks with heavy Capricorn energy in their chart sometimes end up in leadership positions, and it's because they're so used to just plowing ahead onto the next thing, onto the next thing, onto the next thing. Okay, because it's about achievement, it's about getting stuff done. So as cardinal, Capricorn represents the entrepreneur, the doer, right? The builder. This is expressing the active principle through a focus on results, which is an expression of his position as the final sign in the Earth sign series. Okay? Results are the end thing, aren't they? So Capricorn points to our ambitions and where we're committed to seeing things through to their end. Okay? The archetype here, the builder, but also the achiever, the administrator, or prime minister. So someone who basically like directs the activities of others, right? Capricorn is the wisdom that comes with experience and which culminates in success and recognition after you've achieved what you set out to accomplish. Okay, so in that sense, he's also kind of an old soul or mentor figure. As the natural ruler of the 10th house, he's that wizened, experienced person, entity, whatever, that can guide and mentor. And often in a person's chart, Saturn will represent someone who's older and wiser and perhaps more experienced. Okay, Saturn being the ruler of Capricorn. Okay, so as the natural ruler of the 10th house, he can represent one of the parents, most often the father. Okay, Capricorn is also the hermit, which is kind of an interesting aspect of Capricorn that we don't necessarily explore very often. But Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, or Kronos, right? That's invocative of father time. His exaltation is in Libra. So a sign that's actually square to Capricorn. And in Libra, as such, with that being his exalted place, he dons the role of judge, right? 9th house is law, Sagittarius is law, but Capricorn is the judge. As such, he holds us accountable, both for our actions and for our inaction, okay? He points to where our responsibilities lie. And that's all serious business, right? That's not light stuff. And so because of this, Capricorn is very much about what comes after, which includes both rewards and consequences. Okay? We refer to him often as the celestial master. Okay? And he kind of gets a bad rap. He's earned tough love father figure, the one that doesn't put up with your excuses and your BS, right? But ultimately, Saturn really has our best interests at heart, right? You understand, if you're a parent, you understand tough love when dealing with your children, right? Sometimes you just put that hammer down. You love them. You don't love them any less. But what you're doing or saying has to do with their own best interests and trying to teach them maybe a tough lesson. But when we're talking about Capricorn and Saturn, we're talking about lessons that stay with you for life, okay? Jonna says, I just can't hate Saturn. I've tried. You know, I can't either. I didn't like Saturn very much when I was a child, when I first got interested in astrology. And so we're talking like grade school. But back then I was following tropical astrology. I had no idea there was such a thing as a sidereal zodiac. And under the tropical zodiac, my sun sign would be Aquarius. And with Aquarius, Saturn, of course, is the traditional ruler. Uranus is the modern ruler. And who the heck wants Saturn? Like, nobody has anything nice to say about Saturn in the world of astrology, right? And so I'm very much rejective of Saturn and be like, yes, Uranus, let's go, right? I'll be the humanitarian. I'll be that activist, the altruist, right? The creative genius or the inventive genius. That sounds way more appealing than Saturn. But what I've come to learn and understand about Saturn, and most of the time I think we don't really understand this until we go through our very first Saturn return. He's not a bad guy. He's not an evil guy. He's going to make you work for what you get, but it's all going to be for your best good in the end. I think that Saturn potentially teaches us some of the most valuable lessons that there are to learn in life. And so I cut him a lot of slack, but I think it's one of the things that we don't, because he, Capricorn specifically, this is an energy that has to do with time, right? Long periods of time, extended periods of time, decades. And so it's something I think that we don't realize until we're much older as individuals. We finally, especially if we develop an interest in astrology earlier in life, we don't really fully appreciate what Saturn represents until we've got some of that time and experience under our belts. Now, Saturn also speaks to loss and sorrow and what we fear. Okay? And keep those in mind because we are going to explore those a little bit when we prompts. But Capricorn, which represents our most public face via the 10th house and our reputation, Capricorn is about authenticity and about integrity. And this is a conversation we haven't had before. He is about where you achieve alignment between your public and your private life, i.e. living your principles, where your public role and your private behavior and your public behavior align perfectly. And so you can kind of consider this in the context of famous people who end up in the news, because that's the easiest target for us to look at, right? Famous people whose public and private personas don't match up. And oftentimes when they don't match up, when they're not living in authenticity, when they're not living in integrity, when that private life is made public, their reputation is damaged, a loss of status occurs. Okay? That lack of authenticity and that lack of integrity has consequences. And so really, in order to step into Capricorn and start embodying the principles of Saturn in your life, what you want to work to achieve is that authenticity and that integrity, where your private behavior reflects your public attitude and values. Okay? Can't have it both ways. Kind of fun thing to think about. So grab your pen and paper. We're going to look at these workshop prompts, or the releasing prompts, okay? So here are some things I want you to kind of chew on and go with whatever you feel most compelled, right? You can work with this energy according to what house it falls in, but where it's an eclipse and it's super powerful, I want you to just kind of trust your intuition. Wherever you feel led to take this, take it that direction, even if it doesn't have anything to do with the house this particular full moon is falling in for you, okay? Where are you avoiding commitment? What are you avoiding taking responsibility for in your life? That's some tough stuff right there, huh? What are you afraid of having associated with you or being known for? Where is it that you are not in integrity or in authenticity in your life? What behavior can you release that would allow you to come back into alignment, into integrity, and walk the walk, so to speak? Okay? What are you fearful of that's preventing you from taking the next step? Saturn wants you to face your fears, remember that. What are you attached to that keeps you feeling safe so that you don't have to face your fear, or so that you don't have to accept responsibility, personal responsibility? What is it you're afraid of losing? And is that fear holding you back? What is limiting you? Where are you avoiding obstacles or creating your own obstacles? Okay. So what you're going to do is write down on a piece of paper whatever it is that you're wanting to let go of tonight, whether that's something that you're fearful of, or a limitation, obstacle, an attachment that you have, a behavior, especially if it's a behavior around avoiding commitment or avoiding responsibility. Okay? And then, like, you know, fear. If you have a fear of being known for something or having something associated with you. So you're going to write that down. We're going to spend a few moments in quiet writing that down, and then we're going to come back and do the releasing part. And when you're ready, if you're willing to share in the comments what it is that you're letting go of tonight, that is always wonderful. Sometimes it helps kind of spur the rest of us in our thinking of, oh yeah, I could do that. That would be a good thing for me to let go of. Okay, but I'm going to recap these real quick for anyone who might be joining late. What are you avoiding taking responsibility for in life? Where are you avoiding commitment? What are you afraid of having associated with you or being known for? Where are you not in integrity or in authenticity in your life? What behavior can you release to come back into alignment, into integrity? What are you fearful of that's preventing you from taking the next step? What are you attached to? Now, this could be something that keeps you feeling safe, or something that keeps you in a position where you don't have to face your fear or accept responsibility. Okay? What are you afraid of losing? And is that fear holding you back? And then finally, what is limiting you? Where are you either avoiding obstacles or creating your own obstacles? So we're going to spend a few minutes writing out what we're letting go of. This is so good. So everyone, get to it. Hi Dylan, you're just coming in while we're writing what we're letting go of. And what I'll do here is recap the questions for you if you want to dive in. So we are working on our releasing prompts. What are you avoiding taking responsibility for in life or avoiding commitment? What are you afraid of having associated with you or being known for? Where are you not in integrity or in authenticity in your life? What behavior can you release to come back into alignment, into integrity? What are you fearful of that's preventing you from taking the next step? What are you attached to that keeps you feeling safe so that you don't have to face your fear or accept responsibility? What are you afraid of losing? And what is limiting you? Where are you either avoiding obstacles or creating your own obstacles? Those are some of the things that we're working with while we write out what it is that we're releasing. This is a big one. You're right, Dylan. It says, I was totally watching the wrong video for like 20 minutes. I'm so sorry. I had another video that I did earlier today, so I could totally see how that might happen. Danielle says, ruler Saturn being retro, will that impact on us? It can, in the sense that the retrograde ruler, of course, turns the energy inward, right? So a lot of what I think this particular full moon about is the walking the walk, like we talked about before, the making sure your private life is in alignment with your public life, right? Acting in integrity and acting in authenticity. What I think it could also suggest, Danielle, is that for those folks whom this particular eclipse is going to touch personally, you may see the outcomes and the results of the eclipse energy as it's activated, especially in the coming year. You may see it kind of be a delayed reaction in that sense. Also, in part because Saturn is just naturally not in a hurry in that sense. But where you might see that really interact is when Saturn goes direct here, coming up, which happens, is it early September? I'm trying to remember. I think it's the first week of September, which is still within that area of influence of these eclipses, and this eclipse in particular. Okay? So that's where I would really watch, is where is Saturn in relation to your chart and in relation to the eclipse degree when he goes direct. That will give you a... So here's mine. I'll share, because this is a definitely, I think, about integrity and authenticity for me. It's about avoidance of dealing with financial responsibilities, because this is an 8th house full moon for me, and it's September 6th. I've had it early September, and I want to say it's around, I already closed out my notes. I think it's around, I want to say the 9th, but maybe that's not right, that the eclipse degree gets transited again. No, it can't be, because this is the 27th. Let's find those notes and have a look. 3 important eclipse essentials. Let's look at those dates. What did it say? We said for the July 27th full moon lunar eclipse in Cancer, the dates to watch were the 25th and 26th of May, 25th and 26th of June, 27th, the week before and after the 27th of July, which is tomorrow, 27th and 28th of August, and then the 27th of September. So that does fall kind of in between. But I would still keep an eye on it and just see what happens, especially if that particular day, if Saturn is aspecting something in your natal chart. I would definitely keep an eye on it, because when he changes directions, that could trigger something important, which may or may not be related to this eclipse. Okay. So here we go. For I'll share mine first. If anyone wants to share in the comments, please do. So I used to make, in my professional life, working outside of the home, far more money than I do right now. And actually, when I started my business in 2014, I was basically starting over from scratch. I was starting from 0 income and building it. And okay, I have a Capricorn sun. I had my first job when I was 12. I had a paper route, and I have worked every day of my life since then, right? I've always had a job, and even in my 20s, I was in positions of responsibility and authority in the jobs that I did. And so from that point on, up until I would say, 2010 or so, I had a really good income. It was my income. I was the one making the decisions financially for the most part, as you know, the breadwinner in my household, you know, with my kids and whatnot, my husband. I was the one who earned the money that we lived on. And so I was used to being in that position of responsibility. I was used to being in charge of that. And then going from that to zero was really scary and really hard for someone, especially I think for someone who has a Capricorn sun, to not have access to your own, to monies that you've earned, where like you can make the decisions around it, and being dependent on someone else's support, you know, and even potentially having to come to that person for money. That was a weird situation for me to be in. It was very uncomfortable for the longest time. And not having access to my own resources kind of triggered this anxiety around things like debts, right? Money that I owe people, especially big money, right? So like loans or, you know, large financial outlays like taxes and things like that. And so it's easy when that's the case to slip into a kind of avoidance behavior, especially if thinking about it or dealing with it tends to stir up anxiety. And that was kind of the situation that I had moved into after having been in control of my own income for so long, and having just made so much money. I made a decent income doing what I did. And so here's what I put down for my releasing. I release my fear of being financially unsafe, which causes anxiety and the inclination to avoid dealing with major financial obligations. I release that tendency to avoid and that fear so that I may come into healthy relationships with other people's money and the resources they have, which I need. Now I've added on another little bit here that I will also release any jealousy or anger, known or unknown, which I may harbor around the idea of inheritance. Okay? That's a whole other story, which we won't really get into. I have a bone to pick with my baby brother, maybe. Let's leave it at that. So this is, for me, this is kind of a big thing. And I really hope that in doing this releasing, it does allow things to shift, especially doing it at an eclipse, that it does allow things to shift enough for me so that I can confidently and comfortably move into that space of, all right, let's tackle debt management, let's tackle long-term financial planning, let's tackle investments and retirement and all that stuff all over again, because I'm starting from zero in terms of having, you know, retirement monies or investments or any of that, and still carrying a decent sized debt load, because I, of course, like many young people in this country, took months to go to college, right? Oh, mine is super good. Thank you. Thank you. It's kind of weird because I tend to be kind of private about like finances, although, which is funny because I have an attitude that we shouldn't be private about finances. And it comes from a very amazing book, which if you ever have the chance to get your hands on and read, is called Your Money or Your Life by Joe Dominguez and Vicki Robin. It's an amazing book that will teach you basically how to plan a roadmap from where you are now to financial independence, whatever that looks like for you. It's an amazing book, and that book is the whole reason that I own my home with no mortgage. Okay, so definitely, if you want to explore that territory, Jonna, that's a book that I would recommend. But this is kind of a big one for me because it deals with that. It deals with a fear that I never used to have before because I made my own money quite comfortably, right? But it also deals with maybe some kind of lingering thing on the family dynamic, which is also kind of interesting. But that's what I'm releasing tonight, and that's what you're going to do, is you're going to state aloud your intention to release whatever it is you're letting go of on your piece of paper. So state aloud your intention. It doesn't have to be word for word, but something like, I release this fear of being financially unsupported. I release this feeling of avoidance when it comes to dealing with major financial obligations, which no longer serves me. I'm grateful for the lesson that it brought to me while it was in my life, and I release this fear and avoidance with love and gratitude. That's basically what you do. And now what we're going to do is the fun part. You can either burn it. I encourage you, if you're going to burn it, do this piece in a fire-safe place. You can also tear it up into tiny, tiny, itty-bitty pieces of paper and just, you know, somewhere, right? But the physical act of tearing and releasing reinforces that statement that you're making out loud about what it is you're ready to move beyond, whatever it is that's holding you back. And I tell you, I am ready to start fresh in a financial sense, as far as things like investments, things like insurance, things like retirement planning, things like debt management. I'm ready to get a handle on all of that and get back to where I used to be, which was with quite a bit of money socked away and no real debt to speak of other than my student loans. But I'm definitely ready to get to a point of, I would say, financial health is what I would call it, having been a finance employee before. I'm ready to get to financial health again. So I'm releasing the fear that is causing me to have this avoidant behavior. And we'll see. We'll see where we are in 12 months from now. We'll see how much progress. But yeah, you're just going to burn it. And look at that. It's all gone. It was ready to go. That went right up too. Like I did not even have to light that more than once. If you burn it, like I said, do it in a fireplace safe. So if you have a fire pit or a fireplace or a barbecue, if you don't have access to something like that, you could do it in your kitchen sink. As long as you get everything else out of the sink and you have the water right there, you could burn it in your kitchen sink. But you just want to be safe if you're burning it. Or like I said, you tear it up into tiny little pieces. But that act that's just the physical step that reinforces your intention to let it go. Okay? And then what I encourage you to do afterwards, when you're done your burning, after you've done your tearing up, feel free to spend a few minutes just kind of in quiet meditation. One of the things that I kind of want to talk about, where this is a Capricorn full moon, right? Capricorn, as we talked about earlier, having to do with reputation and like your public life. Remember that what other people think of you is none of your business. Okay? You have the power to define success on your own terms. And what that means is that your life energy is yours and yours alone to spend, and you get to decide what you want to achieve with it. Okay? Let's move on. I just have maybe a few announcements. Nothing really, really major other than I think we started the broadcast a little bit late, and that's because I was cranking to get the August full horoscopes by sign up on the website. They are live. So if you have a paid subscription, you can log in. You can read the August overview, the short reports, and the full horoscopes by sign right now. If you want to sign up to get access, you do get a 2-week free kind of a trial period, or you can wait until the beginning of August, because that's when it'll be open to the general public. Okay, and then Monday coming up, July 30th, we're having our next broadcast of the Sidereal Insights Astro Update on the Mystick Physick Astrology Facebook page at 1:30 Mountain Daylight Time. That is 3:30 Eastern, 8:30 British Standard Time, and 5:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. You Aussies got to get up early to catch me on Monday, as I guess. I don't know. And then let's see, the YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe if you like. We're kind of growing our audience there. That's where I'm archiving all of these videos. So if you miss one and you're like, I don't want to scroll through Facebook, you can head over to the YouTube channel, or you can bounce to mystickphysic.com, because I'm also archiving them there. So keep that in mind. And stay tuned. I know I've said this before a couple of times. Stay tuned for announcements. The 2019 Ultimate Astrological Planner is in the works. I'm about halfway done with having it ready. However, I'm prepping for unexpected house guests this weekend, so I've had to shift my schedule around, which is why you didn't get your reminder email about this event until this afternoon instead of yesterday. Okay. So as I'm going to be delayed maybe by a couple of days getting back to the planner. What I may do is put together some kind of pre-sale so that you could go ahead and order it now, and then as soon as I have them ready, which should be within the next couple of weeks, they could be sent out to you. Now, this is for the 2019 planner, which is going to come in a couple of formats. Of course, it's going to be a 13-month planner, and there will be a January to January plan done before the last couple of years. But I'm also putting together an academic planner this year. So if you didn't get the 2018 planner and you don't want to wait until later this year to buy one that starts in January, you can go ahead and jump in now and buy the academic planner once I have it released. And that will start, I'm trying to decide, July, maybe July through June. Those are the two ways that I've been seeing other academic planners put together, but I really haven't set on yet on which one I might go with. I might go with June through July. Then you'd have a wasted month. I don't know. We'll go July through August, because then it would still be a 13-month planner. And I don't know. We'll see. You'll know more when I know more. How about that? But thanks everyone for joining me. Thank you for anyone who came on late. We had a really great conversation tonight about the Saturn archetype, about the Capricorn archetype, and about how we can tap into the Capricorn energy to move through fear, to move through obstacles, and to just release whatever is holding us back and not allowing us to grow and move into the space that we want to move into and to achieve what we want to achieve. And so if you did join late, I would definitely encourage you, once the broadcast is over, watch the replay because there's some good stuff. Jonna says, oh, I would love an academic planner. You are not the only one, Jonna. I've had 3 other people ask for the academic planner, and so I'm making it happen. I'm making it happen. So I think it'll be July through August. I think that's what I'll settle on, because I don't want to give you June through July and then have like a whole month because I didn't get it released in time, a whole month that you can use. I'll probably do July through August. I haven't really seen any academic planners that go August through. And I think that's probably because most, like if teachers are using it, they've got to do some planning before school starts. But yes, we're going to release an academic planner, and we're going to do, like I was mentioning last time, the disc-bound planner, which is right up your alley. So thanks everyone for joining me. I hope you have a blessed evening and have an easy time just releasing beyond what it is that you're letting go of this evening as we move through this eclipse experience. So my wishes, my best wishes to all of you, and we will see you on Monday.